Brave AI is not only perfect complement to Watson X, but underpins the synergy in IBM and Casper. Guys, I did a coverage about this a little over a month ago, talking about AI governance, talking about Casper and IBM. But Tokenizer, please inject.
For sure, yeah. So I think Brave AI is one of those things you really have to read between the lines for, because if we go back to the initial launch of Brave AI, I think it happened sometime around November, December last year. And maybe I shouldn't use launch, but initial demo. So Casper actually released the initial demo in a live webinar to the community before they presented that at the World Economic Forum in January this year. And the interesting thing about the initial presentation with that Casper did for kind of the community is that it wasn't just with IBM, but they had a representative from Watson X there, which I guess essentially is IBM anyways. It's an IBM product, but it's from another arm of IBM, almost a subsidiary of sorts, right? And then they also had Gartner on there. For those unaware of Gartner, you could kind of relate them to companies like Bain and Company or McKinsey. So they're just like, a big consultancy firm, though they're more focused on tech than on finance. And they actually listed Casper as a sample vendor for open source technologies just a few months before the initial launch of Brave AI. And being a Gartner vendor isn't a small task whatsoever. Essentially, I read the statistic that a company that gets listed as a vendor by Gartner has something like 2,500% extra chance of being successful in the next 5 years, as opposed to other traditional companies that might not be listed by Gartner.
Good God.
Yeah, it's massive. Well, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? Like if one of the largest tech consultancy firms is backing and listing you, they've probably did their research, and once they're backing and kind of like supporting you and they voice that publicly, more eyes probably come on you. You get more businesses coming your way and being like, hey, we heard what you did from Gartner. We're interested in your services. So I think it's kind of like a cascading effect. And so to see a Gartner representative also join the Brave AI kind of webinar, it really makes you think kind of why they would do that in a sense. And then kind of reading between the lines on the IBM end, we know Casper's partnered with IBM for quite a while now, right? Like the initial Casper and IBM partnership was simply just a bridge between a permissioned Hyperledger fabric using IBM's Weaver, which is the interoperability solution that is SATP compliant, onto Casper's public permissionless blockchain. And the reason that's so impactful is because literally every other bridge solution we've seen in crypto is permissionless chain to permissionless chain. So, and most times these are like, I guess I shouldn't say most times, but more often than not, they're EVM chains. They're like, like Ethereum to Binance Smart Chain, or Ethereum to Matic, Ethereum to AVAX, etc. There are, of course, also like Ethereum to Solana bridges, which Ethereum's EVM, of course, Solana's WebAssembly WASM. So a bit of an upgrade there, but we haven't seen permissionless to, or permission to permissionless. And that is massive because in an enterprise sense, permissioned into permissionless is probably the optimal way to go. And we've seen this with IPv, and I know there's kind of a negative connotation on IPv because of, the bankruptcy and everything, but the point still stands that IPv was a very innovative vision, and what failed wasn't the tech. It was, in my personal opinion, they came too early. Like the tokenization of IPs is absolutely massive. Hell, like 97% of the was it? Oh, no, I'm thinking of Actus, sorry. I was right. 70 to 80% of the value in the S&P 500 is all in intangible assets like intellectual properties. So just really think of how big the tokenization of IPs is, right? And so that, of course, it went bankrupt, unfortunately, but the use cases and vision around that was huge, and it really showcased the benefits of permissioned into permissionless, because essentially what they did was they could have the metadata and information of those IPs stored privately on a permission network, so that couldn't be accessed by mass retail. Because I mean, what do you think might happen if a malicious retail actor got access to Apple or IBM's patents? Like that could be really bad, right? That's
Yeah, give
how.
me a break. I've been over with.
Oh yeah. And so in doing this, the information stays private and secure. And what bridges to the public end is the physical asset itself. So essentially, it's almost like a tokenized investment vehicle in a sense, though, of course, this is it's a utility investment in a sense, because it's not just an investment into the IP, which is already really big. Because imagine if you could invest into, the IPs that are in Apple's iPhones, for example, like that, I would imagine could provide some really big returns. But beyond that, what they can do is you can license IPs to other businesses and firms to kind of use your intellectual properties in their products. Of course, there'd be microtransactions and microservices on the way, which are automated by smart contracts. And that kind of takes it to another level, because now you're writing smart contracts either on a permission chain that ties into a permissionless chain, or vice versa. And we really haven't seen anything like that in crypto yet. But I do think this will be massive going forward. And not to get too off topic, but we also saw this hybrid use with Hedera and their partnership with Takeon, where they're using a private Hyperledger Sawtooth to store files by the US Department of Defense and US National Science Foundation, while using the public Hashgraphs consensus to validate that those files are stored securely. And so once again, it's utilizing both the private aspects of blockchain, but also the public aspects of it. And the reason I think this is so essential for businesses going forward is because realistically, companies aren't going to want all their data on a public permissionless chain. Like that can cause, a lot of vulnerability issues. As much as everyone, cheers for like transparency, like there still needs to be some confidentiality and privacy. Just, that's how the world of business works. That's why we sign NDAs, for example. And so in this sense, it allows businesses' data to, one, stay private, but they can also securitize certain information that they don't want going public, while still being able to sort of lease and bring their assets that are tokenized on chain for, just further expansion of their business services and products.
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned here, for instance, where this goes much deeper, like Deloitte, that's a huge name. It says when we look at IBM, or how we look at IBM, is marketing Watson X. They state that, one of the headlines focuses on break open the black box. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on this because I thought this was really good in regards to your research. I have some more research that I'm going to share with you guys in regards to McKinsey, So let's pull this up for a second. Let's share this tab instead. If anything, we'll do a full screen for you guys can see it, especially if you're on your couch or whatever you're viewing from. This statement that Tokenizer has about a black box can't reconcile / track training data, can't address causes of hallucination / biases, more exposed to what is this part right here? P2?
Yeah, I think that's P2, but it essentially just relates to I'm sure you've seen, but like there's worries around ChatGPT taking like copyrighted information.
Yeah, and it's a little bit ridiculous to a sense when it comes to like ChatGPT and some of these other AIs, because I mean you do see the biasness, and some people point out like, well, this is what really makes for example, Grok stand out, because Elon Musk could give two what's when it comes to biasness, and I would agree with that to a degree, but it does get a little bit ridiculous. But anyway, getting more into this for a second. Let me full screen just a little bit more. Yeah, more exposed to that copyright issues, but this part, you got some good highlights here. IBM Watson governance, built to direct, manage, monitor AI, right? And when you get more into it, it says on the highlight, use software automation to help improve model deployment and monitoring while eliminating costly and error-prone tasks. And then this other part, govern machine learning ML models built in third-party tools. Well, when we talk about third-party tools, I mean, come on, Casper has to be on the forefront to allow that to happen. Let me zoom out on this for a second. So I did want to get just a little bit more of your thoughts on some of this. I mean, this is your research technically, and I know that you've done an excellent job of explaining some of this stuff. But some people have pointed out, especially when it comes to, for example, I think a great example is like Sorbonne, right? Stellar. Why should I invest in Casper when Sorbonne does 3 lines of code? For me, what really does it, in a nutshell, is this, and of course many other things, but this takes the cake. And of course, we're going to get more into why we feel as though it's so undervalued. I'm going to give you guys some actual data from McKinsey, and the numbers. As Mike Cornwell would say, numbers don't lie, math don't lie. But yeah, just touch basis just a tad bit more about that last statement. Machine learning models built in third-party tools.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the common consensus is, well, one, that AI kind of needs some form of, like responsibility in terms of how it's developed moving forward. Because we've seen we've seen in kind of sci-fi movies about what happens when you let AI get too far out of hand. But two, we're kind of seeing this in real life now too, right? Like, let me just use those pictures where Donald Trump was arrested as an example. Like, I think that fooled a lot of people. And like, how far are we into like real AI adoption at the moment? Like 1 year maybe. So you can just imagine how much worse this will get as time goes on and more malicious actors start adopting it, as the barrier of entry for AI just drops more and more over time, right? And so something like both Watson X and Brave AI allow for much more responsibility in AI in kind of the enterprise sense for the most part, which I imagine is actually going to be very big. Because like, if we think about AI tools today, how are we accessing them? Like, whether you're using like Bard, I think they're like ChatGPT. I know there's a few other chatbots, but these are from large companies that are centralized, for better or for worse, right? And so there needs to be a decentralized solution for them to kind of ensure responsible use of these AI systems. And what's the best way to go about that? It's, yes, to use blockchain, but you don't want to use a blockchain or system where there's very limited room for adoption, in a sense, right? Like, I know you just brought up some AI project on, like, AI governance project on Solana, and like, it could provide some very similar use cases to what Casper is doing with Brave AI and Watson X. But now the most difficult part for them is they actually need to be used by businesses and corporations, right? Like, you can build the greatest AI governance tool, but if no AI learning models or databases or corporations want to adopt your governance tool, like, you are better off probably just not developing it, or just trying to sell it yourself. Whereas
Right.
what Casper is doing is, they're like, this has been publicly stated by IBM too, but they're directly building together for this solution, with IBM being one of the biggest tech companies in the world and one of the oldest Fortune 500s to date. That really says a lot for Casper in itself, because, well, AI is obviously a very new sector at the moment, and one that has like unlimited room for potential. So to see IBM, a leader in tech, decide to further their partnership with Casper and now build in AI, like, really think about like the quote unquote risk on IBM's end, and like the level of kind of competence they'd have to see from Casper to step into the space to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more to get into, but back to what you're talking about just for a brief moment. It's like they're not, as in Casper, it's not like you have a case of, oh, let's just uh, create code because there's a legitimate reason for it than to have IBM involved in regards to AI governance. That should just speak leaps and bounds in itself. Let's get back to this part real quick because I wanted to point some things out. You mentioned specifically here, you said, now when we look specifically on the Brave AI end, the goals and overall vision is eerily similar to how Watson X is basically marketed today. And if anything on this one, we'll full screen this for you guys to see it a little bit easier. Let me go ahead and take you to there. So yeah, let's zoom in on this just for a brief moment. And actually, I guess that's pretty big enough. My bad. Yeah, Casper Labs to build, like it says, a blockchain-powered solution with IBM Consulting to help improve transparency, auditability, generative AI systems, right? This was, of course, posted on January 11th. I elaborated on this on one of my last videos, but I always kind of wanted to get your 2 cents about this. But this last part, IBM's consulting AI governance and technology experts will do what? They'll assist Casper Labs in building the solution. So, guys, I want you to understand this. This is not your typical partnership where it's like, oh, they seem cool. Let's go ahead and partner with them. They're working with them. So when we talk about examples of utility in motion, you're literally having a great example of literally IBM working directly with Casper. We've had other examples of other ones out there where, do we have a really great example of like them working side by side? I think this one takes the cake. And the reason for it is many reasons, but this highlight, again, I want to get your 2 cents on this for a second, Tokenizer, where you stated in this highlight, Casper Labs expects to be available for clients in beta in first quarter 2024 and later available more broadly in their channels and in the IBM Cloud Marketplace. The IBM Cloud Marketplace. So we've seen the recent FUD, and it wasn't even that big of a deal, to be honest, when it came to the whole thing of IPv bankruptcy and so on. But when you see statements like this, I'm looking at like, man, this is a blessing in disguise, because Casper is still so undervalued. Boom, there you go. As I would say, boil it, mash it, stick it in stew. Wow. Your thoughts on this last part?
Yeah. So I think 2 things. So I like how you put the IPv thing as a blessing in disguise. I don't know if I'd 100% agree with saying it's a complete blessing, because it does, like, IPv was a project I personally was very bullish on, just because like I'm very forward thinking about the kind of future valuation of IPs, because like I mentioned earlier, over 80% of the S&P 500's value is in IPs. But like IPs really aren't too useful at the moment because of how locked up and how illiquid and like hard to access they are, right? But if we're able to create liquidity in the IP markets, create, instantaneous access through blockchain, like really think about how valuable the IP space could be. So, I do hope another form of IPv comes out in the near future. Maybe, Casper and IBM will give it another go or something. We'll have to see about that. But at the same time, I think there's a lot more focus around AI now between Casper and IBM. And, with AI being one of the hottest trends around the world, not just in crypto, but like in tech, maybe not even in tech, just like it's one of the hottest things in the world today. And so to see this soon to be listed on IBM's cloud marketplace really says a lot, because it goes back to what I said before about trust, right? Like, you probably couldn't pay IBM any amount of money for to list like a scam or malicious software on there, or even like to put it nicely, like retail focused crypto applications. Like, I don't think you can pay IBM to list your DEX on the IBM cloud marketplace. So to see them listed or listing a real utility that really benefits the AI space that's built on Casper, I think that really says a lot. And it also goes to further speak volumes about the trust IBM has in Casper, which I just mentioned a bit earlier. But this kind of came around the same this came around the same time as when IPWE went bankrupt, right? And so this kind of goes to and like for people that have been keeping up, you'd know the bankruptcy of IPWE technically has nothing to do with Casper in itself, because it's a company that was using Casper's technology that happened to go bankrupt. Casper really didn't do anything wrong. And so to see IBM still deciding to partner with Casper and now move to one of the most innovative technologies there is, I think that really speaks volumes on the trust IBM has in Casper.
Yeah, the way I look at it, just to kind of state it for the record, everybody, it's not that I would root for the demise of IPWE. When I say, IPWE is a blessing in disguise, I'm looking at it from the Casper perspective of, yeah, a lot of people were pointing out, oh, this is really bad for Casper. And, I think when that news broke, we did see, Casper was significantly down. But I looked at it more from the perspective of, guess what? You know, more Casper, especially if you didn't accumulate enough, from that perspective. Never, of course, would root for anything to do bad. I remember, God, back in the days of Terra Luna and FTX, some people rooting for that to do bad. Are you kidding me? These are people's life savings. I would never root for, you know, anybody get wrecked on anything. I just looked at it from the perspective of, yeah, a lot of people were selling off all their Casper, say to heck with this, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, all right, it's super cheap now. As the saying goes, buy the fear, and a lot of people did that.
Staking rewards were up a lot after that too.
Yeah, exactly. Want to respect your time here, guys. You guys rock. We did hit over 600. Unbelievable. I guess, Tokenizer community really showed up tonight. So thank you so much to your community, our community. It's been really awesome. Before we wrap things up completely, I do want to point out some of this key stuff here. Won't be able to get into all the stuff about NTT and Deloitte and so on. Great references you had, by the way. But what I want to mention is just this real quick. Some of you guys love the visualizations. Let's go ahead and show this as well. So this, guys, look at this for a second. You guys always love the visualizations. And let me take off the little flower pot off for a second. So look at this. The externals, like Tokenizer mentioned, are what we should pay attention to when studying enterprise DLT. That's what we do. This is, Tokenizer has the research portal. Here, we call it whatever you guys want to call it, DYOR. But, we are research enthusiasts. So Tokenizer mentions this means the entities the network are affiliated with and backed by. Below are 9 examples of enterprise DLT ecosystems with connections to legacy industry leaders. What this shows isn't price pump tomorrow, and that's why you don't see it necessarily happen. But rather, it shows long-term potential and collaboration with the legacy elites that lay the foundation and system in our modern world today. Wouldn't you be more excited to get involved with investing in innovation instead of like a quick pump and dump? From our financial system, supply chain, and more, but our current system is semi-sufficient at best. You got a lot of good comments here, but I want to focus obviously on the subject matter, and that is, of course, guys, Casper. So one of the examples you have, Tokenizers, on the second from the top left, and you have, of course, like we talked about, IPWE. You got Cisco. You got Consensus. I don't think Consensus gets mentioned enough. It should. That's huge. And of course, some of the other bigger players, like, for example, like we talked about Hyperledger a lot, IBM, obviously. We talked about Watson. This one I had to look more into. Was it Whiskey? Whiskey.
Yeah. They're a Swiss-based kind of like tech IoT company.
Okay. So there's a lot of interesting things here, guys. And then another thing I want to get into before we wrap things up is, if you kind of want to see the part one of this, I reference, I believe at that time, a lot of what you shared. If you guys are wondering where you can find all this material, if you go to the video section of Maximus Crypto, type in CSPR, some of this comes up. But again, the one that takes the cake, in my opinion, is will lead the industry in generative AI. Casper and IBM, we talked about a lot today. $7.9 trillion industry. Casper, I know I should have typed that all the time, but I put 1000x gem. I was basing off the current market cap and so on. But I want to take you guys to this before we wrap it up. And here is a reference, just in case you were one of the naysayers that you're like, IBM doesn't go out on a limb to mention it. The heck they don't. Let's go ahead and full screen this just for a quick bit. And look what's mentioned. It's crucial to understand some of these things, in my opinion. So they mentioned here Casper Labs to build a blockchain power solution with who? IBM Consulting to help improve transparency and auditability for generative AI systems. Don't just listen to what's posted on CryptoX, literally taking you straight to an actual published article from newsroom.ibm.com if you're wanting the citation. New solution intended to help enterprises seeking the better managing training data for generative AI systems across organizations. And there's a lot that's to be mentioned, and I would highly recommend you taking a look into it a little bit more. But these four things, do not get it twisted. Do not overlook it. A compliance dashboard. Think about it, guys. Centralized dashboard for monitoring and managing AI systems as they're applied across organizations to support their compliance processes with an organization's ethical guidelines. Back to the whole thing of not being biased, right? Quality control toolkit, tools for monitoring all this for the performance AI systems, even the outputs. What about the whole thing of version control? Ability to correct for performance of other issues by rolling back to previous iterations of given AI systems that didn't display issues. Again, kind of like, the whole thing of Microsoft Windows. Don't like the update, you have the option of rolling it back. What about?
I actually want to make a quick point on the version control one. I think,
Okay, sure.
and I could be wrong on this, but I think this might be something truly unique to just Casper. I shouldn't say just Casper, but very few blockchains, Casper being one of them. And that's because I'm sure a lot of you guys know, because Casper is often marketed this way, but it's arguably the most flexible, upgradable blockchain there is. And this is because most blockchains can't be quote unquote upgraded at the moment, nor can their smart contracts. So if you want to update a smart contract application or the blockchain in itself, you in a sense almost have to halt the network and restart certain things. Like if you want to make some major changes in a dApp, on certain chains, you might just have to restart and recode the smart contract, which I'm not a developer by any means, but I can imagine that is a massive headache, especially when say you're built on Ethereum and you're trying to build an application that's compliant to DeFi regulations. Well, what we've seen from the likes of Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren, we have no idea what the DeFi regulations are, right? In other words, it's almost ever changing in a sense. So imagine if you built that application on, say, Ethereum or Solana. You don't know how many times you might have to change it until we do have a proper regulatory guideline. Whereas with Casper, it's not just their contracts that are upgradable, but we know their network is super easily upgradable. And you can essentially upgrade the network state without causing any halts to the applications. On top of this, they're very flexible in the sense that you can make clones of the Casper network in different permission settings. So when we look at this version control, and it talks about the ability to correct or kind of go back to previous AI systems, so almost being backwards compatible. That's like reverse upgradability, right? And I would imagine that is potentially something that might have to do with kind of the structure and architecture of how Casper was constructed.
I'm glad you interrupted there and pointed out. By all means, I'll welcome it because I'm glad that you do that. My thing is this, I cover a few other projects and so on, and in which they have layer twos and basically roll ups and so
Yeah.
on. What stands out for Casper, this tells me based off what you mentioned, and please inject if I'm wrong here because I'm not right on everything. I never said I would be. And that is, think about that. I mean, you wouldn't have to, if you're a blockchain, you do have, or not even a blockchain. Let's say you're a project built on, you don't even have your own blockchain, right? Like you're saying, that specific smart contract. Well, if you're not a blue chip, for instance, right, you're trying to get to that, goal of being that, to a sense, you're not top 100, wherever the case be. And you have something like Casper, where Casper doesn't necessarily have to do a roll up. That in itself, especially when we talk about quant, it's going to allow you to not have to put so much of that budget towards that specific thing. Time is money. A lot of these projects don't have dev teams that can devote a whole lot of time and energy into just that, a roll up and so on. So I'm glad you mentioned some of that stuff, in regards to
it's good you brought up roll-ups on like other chains and stuff that roll-ups essentially try to accommodate for things like, for example, scalability, security, upgradability, or any like shortcomings that the infrastructure layer one has. So another issue with that is, like, you could argue the more moving pieces there are, the higher risk it's going to be, the more potential for failure the system might have, because now you have to worry about countless different counterparts as opposed to one system, which in this case is Casper, that kind of takes care of all of it, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, my thing is recognizing all these ones are the all-in-one solution. I mean, Sorbonne to me seems like it's going to be, to a sense, an all-in-one solution. But even with them, 3 lines of code, which is nothing. Quant, I remember, was, when there were 3 lines of code, then they went to literally no lines of code, apparently, with the Overledger update. And then you see this example from Casper. So all of it's very impressive because it tells the world, hey, this is what differentiates us from, I guess you could say, like, the competition. Guys, before we wrap it up, because we're going to wrap it up here soon, like very, very soon, I wanted to get into one of the main key things, I should say a highlight of the night. A lot of you guys were asking, do we actually have any data in regards to specifically like AI governance and how much is it going to be worth and so on? I'm not a fortune teller, but I will always reference the consultancy, or the consultants, I should say, that do data. We have referenced McKinsey in the past. Let's go ahead and pull this up before we wrap it up completely. And let's go ahead and share this with you. So I'm not going to get into the whole thing here, but basically speaking, McKinsey did do a recent study. You can go to securiti.ai, and this was pretty recent. This survey, like it says, from McKinsey, reveals that expectations around the impact of generative AI are high across industries, with 3/4 of industry leaders expecting to see significant or disruptive change in their field due to AI, and around 40% saying that the organizations intends to increase their overall investment in AI due to recent advances. Additional McKinsey research, listen to this, everyone, estimates that AI adoption could add the equivalent of, yes, you read that right, $2.6 trillion to $4.4 trillion of value to the global economy annually. How about this, a little bit more in regards to maybe by 2026, because that always gets brought up. So it also goes on to mention this reference from Gartner. We've also referenced them as well, talking about the AI landscape. It says the advantages of doing so in regards to AI governance are enticing. Gartner estimates that by the year 2026, organizations that operationalize AI transparency, trust, and security will achieve a 50% increase in AI adoption and business goal attainment. That's a big incentive to get AI governance done right. For IBM to select basically Casper for AI governance is huge. And we're not only talking about getting to the goals of like 2030 or 2026 and so on. You have to keep in mind what they're looking to do annually. So in that last video, I was talking about some of these particular numbers. And one of the things that got brought up on the McKinsey research, right, that you guys heard was 4.4 trillion. Guys, listen to this. Let's try to be conservative in regards to anything. So what is 1% of $4.4 trillion? The answer is basically $44 billion. And this is one of the main reasons why I feel as though Casper is extremely undervalued and why we'll never stop talking about it. I can't thank enough to the one and only Tokenizer for bringing the great research on a regular basis. And before we completely close things out, let's give you a plug. He can be followed, like I mentioned before, on a few different platforms, right? There's more than a few. For one, there's YouTube. He could be followed over at youtube.com/@Tokenicer, Tokenicer. As you can see right here, covers quite a few different things. I mean, anything with utility. Over on X, here he is as well. Same thing, @Tokenizer, right? Making enterprise blockchain research fun. I mean, who doesn't want to not only learn, but do it the fun way?
Doing it, right?
Absolutely. That's what we love about you, man. Killing it. Wow, I've seen you grow exponentially. 40.4K followers. My God. There's a reason why you have a big following, because you rock with the research. I want you to, before you leave, can you just touch basis on this real quick?
Yeah,
I'm signed up for this. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was my previous newsletter, the Tokenized Economy, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of you guys had also joined it. So I've actually taken a bit of a pivot away from this, and a lot of you guys might be familiar with Ncash Official. He also covers fairly similar content to the stuff I do. He's a lot more active on YouTube than on X, though, and essentially we've decided to partner together for a new venture that we're titling the Web3 Alert. So you guys can find that on X2, just the Web3 Alert. And essentially, if you guys like what we're covering here, you'll love what we're doing there over at the Web3 Alert too. It's a lot of related things, ranging from long form threads of breakdowns of specific projects showing real world utility, and then videos showing the same thing. And we have also just started our newsletter. We're on week 2 right now, but these come out 3 times per week, and each email is a different category. So on Tuesdays, we'll have weekly news to catch up with and further analyze. On Thursdays, we've got the deep dive of the week. So there's a different project and initiative we deep dive every week. So last week we did Hedera's hot start to 2024. This Thursday, we're going to be doing Quant's role in the process of DLT standardization. And then last but not least, on Sundays, we've got industry trends to watch for. So, for example, last Sunday, we did kind of the convergence of AI and blockchain. And we kind of spent, a good time talking about it just now, right? Like we talked about the convergence with Casper and IBM and kind of how they're tying in blockchain and AI together for more of a unified use case and providing more responsibility in how AI is being developed moving forward. So if you guys do, want more of that, definitely be sure to check out the Web3 Alert and, sign up for a newsletter.
Yeah.
But, outside of that, I just want to thank you one more time, man. I really appreciate coming on as always. And yeah, keep up the great work as always, dude.
Well, thanks. You do the same. And guys, we want to respect Tokenizer's time. I'll read the last bit of comments here in a bit. But you, my friend, are free to go. I can't thank you enough. And I definitely look forward to seeing more of your Casper XDC. Some of these other things, I'm learning about some of the other ones that we don't talk about a lot here, especially TAO. My God, I think you covered that since like the $35 or $40 range, something like that. And my goodness, it has that blown up, I think, a 24x since then. So
it's been definitely kind of crazy, as it fits the AI narrative so perfectly. But I'd love to come on again in the near future, and maybe next time we talk about some other projects we have in common. Like I think last time we spent some time talking about Quant. Always happy to talk about Quant or anything else.
Sounds good, my friend. Well, we'll let you go. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you on the next one. Some of you guys ask what cold storage solution I use. I use this, and it is the decent wallet. All right. I also, of course, have a ledger like this. All right. You can get a discount basically from going into the affiliate link, which is in all the live video descriptions and recorded and so on. And for the yahoos that are out there, they're like, this is just a shield. And, you know, we'll fix point this out. And it's a great point. Were you aware that you don't necessarily get a discount link just going straight to the site? No, you actually have to go through a platform like this. So how cool is that? You know, I don't think anybody's complaining about that. But anyway, use the link, get a discount. There's another one here. If you're the type of person you want to get one for you and your significant other, you could get 2 of them. They actually have another promotion, which is this, and I think this is cool. You can get an all-in-one card wallet plus backup card package. Interesting. I thought that was cool. And again, one of the main key things I like about the Decent wallet is not having to do the red tape of jumping through all the hoops for XDC and the custom folder. I mean, Edward Vincent can vouch on that. Some of you guys can too as well in regards to Ledger. That was a pain in the butt. You don't have that problem. You literally open up your phone, it's on your app, track everything that's going on, right? And, saying goes, not your keys, not your crypto. You know the drill. Check it all out, though, if you wish to do so. It is truly the cold storage solution that I use for the most part. There's still some on Ledger that, I kind of split it up on it and so on. So it is what it is. But if I have preference over one, I'm going with this one. A lot easier to use and so on. And some people, even to this day, still ask me which one to use.